So let's talk about something big that just happened in the world of politics. Recently, Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or AOC, have been teaming up for rallies across the country. And while that might sound like just another campaign event, it's actually a much bigger deal than it looks like on the surface. Because these rallies aren't just about one candidate or one state, it's about where the progressive movement is heading in America and how it's showing up for the next election. And whether you're someone who loves Bernie and AOC or someone who completely disagrees with them, I think it's worth paying attention to what they're doing here. So let's break it down. One of the first states they decided to hit was Wisconsin, because it was one of those key battleground states. It's gone back and forth in recent elections. It went for Trump in 2016, and then for Biden in 2020. It's a state full of working class voters, small towns, and labor union history, and it represents exactly the kind of place where progressive candidates have struggled to win over enough people to turn their ideas into national victories. That's part of what made this rally interesting, because Bernie and AOC weren't there to back some flashy national figure. They came to support a progressive congressional candidate named Rebecca Cook, who's running in a rural, largely white district in western Wisconsin, a district that, by the way, Trump won by double digits. So yeah, not exactly what you'd call typical progressive territory, but that's the point. Sanders and AOC are betting that their message of economic justice, universal health care, workers' rights, and corporate accountability can connect with voters in places where Democrats have been losing ground for years. And they're testing whether the progressive left can actually build bridges beyond its usual urban college town base. Now, if you follow Bernie Sanders over the years, you know this has always been his thing. From Vermont to Iowa to union halls in the Rust Belt, Bernie's whole brand is about talking directly to working people about their wages, their healthcare, their pensions, and their kids' futures. It's not about Twitter wars or culture war headlines. AOC brings a different kind of energy to this. She's younger, more social media savvy, and comes from one of the most diverse districts in the country. But what's fascinating is how closely her message lines up with Bernie's. They're both pushing for Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, stronger unions, and breaking up corporate monopolies. And they're trying to convince voters that these aren't just big city left-wing ideas. They're ideas that matter to working class families everywhere. And you know what? It's working in some places. While progressives haven't won everywhere, and let's be honest, they've taken some tough losses, they've made real gains in places that used to seem impossible. Think of Summer Lee in Pennsylvania, or Maxwell Frost in Florida. They're starting to chip away at the old idea that progressives can only win in deep blue cities. But, and this is a big but, it's still an uphill battle. Because in rural districts like the one in Wisconsin, you're dealing with decades of economic decline, distrust in government, and political culture where conservative media is hugely influential. Convincing people in these places that government programs will actually make their lives better isn't easy, and progressives have had to overcome a lot of skepticism to get there. What has struck me the most about AOC's and Bernie's rallies is that they seem to understand that. They're not pretending it will be easy, but they're also not giving up on these communities, and frankly, that's something both parties could learn from. Because let's be real, for too long, rural America has felt like an afterthought in national politics. Politicians show up every 4 years, make a bunch of promises, and then disappear. Meanwhile, jobs leave, hospitals close, schools struggle, and small towns hollow out. Sanders and AOC are trying to flip the script by talking about corporate greed, stagnant wages, and unaffordable healthcare. Not as abstract national problems, but as things that affect people's daily lives right here in their towns. They're making the case that it's not immigrants or urban elites who are hurting these communities, it's billionaires, corporations, and politicians who serve them. And that's a message that, if you strip away the partisan labels for a second, actually resonates across a lot of political lines. Now, does that mean the progressives are about to sweep rural America? No, probably not even close. But what it does mean is that the progressive movement is growing up. It's learning to play the long game, to contest racism in hard places, and to build alliances with labor groups, farmers, and local organizers. And whether you're a fan of Bernie and AOC or not, that matters. Because when one side of the political spectrum starts seriously contesting ground they used to write off, it changes the whole dynamic of our democracy. It forces debates we haven't had in years, it brings new people into the conversation, and it might just start to close some of the gaps that have split this country for too long. So yeah, that little rally in Wisconsin, it wasn't just a photo op. It was a sign where things are headed, and whether you're excited, skeptical, or somewhere in the between, please subscribe, like, and let me know in the comments what you think. And always remember, progress isn't radical.